So the line of this one, Eagles home favorites here, laying 5.5, total of 46. And of course, we know the Eagles have been fantastic at home, covering the spread straight up, whatever you have it. But I will say this, A.J. Brown is going to be out for this one. That is one of the best receivers for the Eagles. So I'm not sure how this affects the offense. I feel like the Eagles will still be able to cook against this Falcons team. But I think the question is, can we continue writing on this narrative of Kirk Cousins in prime time? Jenks, what's the over-under on people saying, oh, Kirk Cousins in prime time, you got to fade him? This has to be one of the main tropes going into tonight, right?
I think so. And it's partially true, but I think it's something that has sort of run its course. And look, I've been on that train too. Someone, if they wanted to, could do some supercut of me saying Kirk Cousins isn't good in prime time. I've been guilty of that as well. I don't necessarily think it's the case like it used to be because too much has changed as far as teams and teammates and where he is now compared to where he was with Minnesota or with Washington back in the day. So this is something that's gone on for a long time. For me, primetime has nothing to do with this. This has everything to do with, I just think the Eagles are a much superior squad, and I didn't see much from Kirk Cousins. I don't know how I feel about laying the number here. It's gone from 6.5 to 5.5. It's so hard early on, especially in the NFL, to garner what you think is going to happen based on a one-game sample size. So would you have believed if I had told you, because you look at last season as well, that the Ravens would be 0-2 right now? No, you would not think that at all. Would you believe that the Bengals would be 0-2 right now? No, you probably wouldn't believe that. So the NFL is really tough in that way. And I say that because I looked at the Falcons last week, and I thought the Falcons were going to be good this year, and they looked bad against the Steelers. So does that translate to this week, or is it just one game? Teams have bad games. They have bad weekends. Happens all the time in pro football. But based on what I think will happen, I would lay the points with Philly. I don't care that the money is going in the other direction. You're getting it below 6, which is one of the key numbers you look at, not as important as 7. But I just want to see Kirk Cousins be able to operate this Falcons offense. All we've heard about the Falcons offense over the past, few seasons is, man, they have all this potential with Kyle Pitts and with Bijan and with Drake London, and they do, but it's never really come together in a way that you would hope. And maybe it happens this season, but Kirk Cousins is still coming off that Achilles injury. He looked hesitant in game 1, but also that was against the Steelers defense, so you have to take that into account. I still like the Eagles here. The Falcons give me pause until I see more.
Yeah, I think it's less about fading Kirk Cousins for me and more about following the Eagles, who have been really good against the number when playing at home. Dan Karpuk on our network put out this stat yesterday that the Eagles are 17-9-1 against the spread with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback when they play in Philly. And it makes a ton of sense because obviously when you see a trend, if you can't explain it, I feel like it's not a trend. But I feel like you can have some good ammo behind this one because think of the most vocal fans in the NFL. Don't you put Philly pretty high up on that list? So it makes sense that the home field advantage is really good for the Eagles. So I think that's where I would lean. And especially since this one is 5.5. But here's the sabotage factor. The Eagles looked far from dominant in the first game of the season against the Packers. The defense still had problems stopping the run. It was a very back and forth affair. So, Jenks, I feel like this is a really easy team to fall in love with when it comes to the Eagles. But I've been proven wrong before about Philly. Do you think 5.5 is too big of a number to lay?
It feels about right to me. Look, I didn't think this number was going to be around 3. I figured, okay, it's going to fall in that middle area between 3 and 6. So here it is at 5 and a hook. I like it at 5.5. I like the Eagles at 6.5 just because it was below 7. But I think they just rely on Saquon like they did against the Packers. And also, one thing I always take into account when it comes to NFL picks, right or wrong, is rest. Rest matters. And I know the Eagles went to Brazil, but they have the rest advantage because that game was on a Friday. They travel back. They have an extra couple days to rest and get right. And it's the home opener. And it's in Philly. And it's at night. I don't know. I feel like this is just one of those games where the Eagles, even without A.J. Brown, are probably the right side here. I don't know if I'll play it personally, but that is my lean.
All right, I got a parlay for you, a conservative parlay. Okay. Eagles money line, Saquon touchdown. You combine them, it's minus 110. Would you
Yeah.
rather play that or the Eagles on the spread or Saquon anytime touchdown by itself, which I think is like minus 190?
Oh, I like that part. Yeah, you can't play Saquon at minus one. I mean, you can. You can always do it if you want. Yeah, I like that much better because I do think the Eagles are going to win. I do think Saquon will find a way to get to the end zone. At minus 110, yeah, that's a nice parlay look. I like it.
Yeah, I think I like that the best because doesn't it feel like Saquon's gonna get in the end zone? Like I don't think I want to
Mhm.
pay minus 190 for it, but these type of running backs who have good hands and who can run it in, the fact that they can score in two ways, it's really enticing for these type of guys in an anytime touchdown play. So if I'm using that logic, how do we feel about Bijan Robinson in this game? He's minus 125 to score a touchdown. Didn't score a touchdown the first game of the season, but it was against the Eagles. It was against the Steelers. A really good defense. TJ Watt was absolutely going crazy in that game. I feel like we do see a better offensive output in this one because we saw it in the Eagles' first game of the season. Maybe it was an anomaly because this game was in Brazil, but if you look at the stats for the Packers, in the first game, Jordan Love had 260 through the air. Josh Jacobs had 84 yards on 16 carries. So I feel like maybe we have some value plays when it comes to the Falcons, but I think the sabotage factor is it's really hard to take running back props for a team that you think is going to be losing. Because do you think they will abandon the run if they're down by a lot of points? I think that's the question I have about Bijan Robinson. Or do you say this is their every down back? It feels like nobody else is getting the carries. Does he hit this regardless?
Well, I think the difference between Bijan and other running backs in the NFL is that Bijan can split out as a receiver, and he's great at catching the football. So even if they're down, they could put him in the backfield or split him out, and he's still such a good route runner, and he's so elusive that he could still get into the end zone. So you're not wrong. If the Falcons are playing from behind, they will pass the ball more, but also the Falcons would be doing themselves a disservice if they took Bijan off the field during any of those circumstances where they're playing from behind. So with other running backs, maybe you say, okay, this guy isn't great out of the backfield. He's probably not going to get a lot of carries. But with Bijan, he has a different type of skill set. He's never been that just traditional running back. He is fantastic as a receiver as well. So that wouldn't scare me off.
Yeah, and here's the other justification if you want to look at Bijan Robinson over his rushing prop. Josh Jacobs last week ran for 84 yards, like I said, averaged 5.2 yards per carry in a losing effort against the Eagles. And even if you look at Bijan in a losing effort against the Steelers, still had 18 carries for 68 yards. I want to say his rushing prop tonight is like 67. I think it's right around that number. I feel like he gets it against a softer Eagles run defense. And some of this, I do think, still hinges on Kirk Cousins.